Hi, everybody. How are you doing? I hope you're well. Today is Monday, the 3rd of March. Yes. And today is a spiky day. Today, we have some tea and coffee for you. I tell you, we saw this coming. It's not anything new. I'm called, by the way, I'm African Queen Mo coming to you from the beautiful city of Nairobi. And today we have a very interesting show. And what is the topic? It's about worry. Are you worried about Kenya? Are you worried? Why are you worried? I really try. We're told not to worry. But every single day when you hear news like the kind of news we've heard today, it just gives you no choice but to worry. Yeah? You really have no choice. And not even to worry, but to get so shocked. And, or should I say, when your suspicions are confirmed, that's really the point, because we have raised this issue, it's even more disturbing. Do you recall, you guys, when we talked about the healthcare system and I explained to you how it is funded? And we went through the funding of the universal healthcare system in Kenya, and I explained to you that only 50% is funded by the government, and the rest is funded by donors and private entities. Well, today the Auditor General herself, Nancy Githiongo, I think that's her name, she has confirmed the worst suspicion of all. And before I continue today, I'd like to invite Susan to the show. Today is going to be a heated one. It's so worrying and it's so disturbing. Let me bring Susan on board. Karibu, Susan.
Hello, everybody.
Lovely to see you there, Susan. Okay, now let me play something so that I get everybody in tune with what we're discussing today. And by the way, the link is in the StreamYard. For those of you who are going to join us today in studio, we more than welcome you to the studio or into the comment section, whichever one you feel comfortable with. You do not have to show your face. You can just type away and share your views. Just go to the comment section. There is a link. It says https://streamyard.com, and there's a link there, guys. So welcome to the show. Let me play this for you because be braced to watch the most shocking video of all today. Yup.
Tonight, we begin with the shocking revelations contained in a report by the Auditor General raising queries over the technology system running the controversial healthcare scheme SHA. The Auditor General has raised the red flag of a shadowy account run by the suppliers of the system, where 2.5% of SHA members' contributions is remitted on either daily or weekly basis without Kenya's approval. The audit report also highlights violation of the Public Procurement and Assets Disposal Act by procuring the system through specially permitted procurement procedure to single source the service provider instead of competitive bidding. Ayub Abdikadir begins our broadcast tonight with a breakdown of the Auditor General's bombshell on the workings of the troubled SHA.
Dr. Nancy Gathungu's audit report highlights glaring inconsistencies in the procurement of the healthcare information. And technology digitization system used to run the Social Health Authority at the Ministry of Health at a cost of 104.8 billion Kenya shillings. The Auditor General revealing glaring inconsistencies in the tender paperwork, contract agreements and financial proposal. The auditor lifting the lid on how procurement law was violated, with no inclusion of procurement plan, nor a medium-term budgetary expenditure framework before the procuring of the system. The report details how the management breached the law by using uncompetitive procurement procedure in single sourcing a service provider of the digital system, violating Article 227 of the Constitution, which requires fairness, transparency, competitive and cost-effectiveness. Dr. Gathungu also discloses the contract entered into did not provide the scope of the work. The number of health facilities where the technology system was to be installed was never disclosed. Despite a cost price of 7 billion Kenya shillings for training, There is no explanation to show for the number of healthcare workers to be trained on the system and the mode of training to arrive at the cost. According to Dr. Gadungu, the management was in clear breach of the law. The report also exposes a lack of payment arrangement agreement. According to the financial proposal, the consortium proposed a funding model where 2.5% of member contribution from the Social Health Authority, 5% of claims from health facilities, and 1.5% were to be used to pay for the service. The 1.5% is to come from track and trace solution. The Auditor General states that the remittances would yield 111 billion Kenya shillings in 10 years, and further adds that the money is transferred to an escrow account daily at a frequency of not less than 1 week.
It's a loan that has to be serviced by the national government.
Her position was also corroborated by the Controller of Budget when she appeared before the National Assembly's delegated legislation, saying that the Housing Fund and the Social Health Authority contributions are not deposited in the Consolidated Fund Services.
Then there was the question from Mheshimiwa Kuria there on the Housing Fund. Now, I need to bring out the fact here that there is a lot of money that does not pass through the COB. And the Housing Fund, the SHIF, like you have seen, the Railway Development Fund, the Petroleum Levy, all these funds are operated outside the Consolidated Fund and therefore not part of what I approve.
An examination of the Auditor General's report also reveals unfavorable contract clauses where the State Department of Health is prohibited from developing another system or a product with similar functionalities. The contract, in part stating that the procurement entity nor the government agencies are authorized to access the system in order to build a similar product. Dr. Gadungo's report also points out non-compliance with 1/3 rule of basic salary, in contrast to the Employment Act. The report also points out non-compliance by the Ministry of Health with staffing of persons with disability. Receipts and payments by the Ministry of Health showing compensation of employees amounting to 8.3 billion Kenya shillings. However, an analysis of the master roll revealed that the State Department of Health has 1,394 staff, out of which only 32 are persons with disability. The revelations by the Auditor General come a day after President William Ruto broke his silence over the challenges facing his administration's healthcare program, striking an assuring tone in the midst of an exponential growth in out-of-pocket expenditure and public outrage due to system failures and downtime, locking out hundreds of Kenyans from medical care and attention. Ayub Abdikadir, Citizen TV.
Tonight we begin with the shocking revelation.
I don't know where to take this, guys, except to say we have two fabulous women in government. And I really want to thank Nancy Gathongo and the Controller of Budget, Margaret Nyakango. Two of the most amazing Kenyan women. And we really should thank those women because they have stood their ground and they have committed to transparency at all costs. This comes at great cost, at great risk to themselves and to their jobs. And to the donors who are supporting the Kenya government, including the IMF, that is working together with the government, in cahoots, in bed with the government, and has been invited to show, to prove, to come and evaluate the country's should I say, whether the country should, is in a position to receive more loans, basically, its health. Unfortunately, the IMF has been playing ball with a country like Kenya that is overcommitted and that is taking its people to the brink of starvation. We have a country right now, we have headlines, news headlines from the Star newspaper today that I saw, that people are struggling to feed their families right now. People are struggling to put a meal on the table. We have seen also currently that right now our country is almost literally in darkness at night. Our roads are actually a death trap because they are not lit at night. Okay, because the government, the city council has not been paying its money to the Kenya Power. Okay, so we have dark roads right now. We are in darkness. I've been driving outside there in complete darkness, extremely dangerous conditions, and very bad for business because a lot of cars are not out on the road. A lot of people will not go on the road because it's also a safety and security risk. But moving back now to SHA, we're talking about the social health care system. What we are seeing is that this is a complete scam. It is a scam. I'm going to play one video and then I'm going to let Susan come on board and present. Oh,
Naweza si wadzangu. That's President Ruto. Ni aje wase, you must be stupid to sign something you don't know. Naweza si wadzangu. That's President Ruto dismissing governors when they questioned the transparency of the SHA agreement with the Ministry of Health. And why are the governors uneasy about this deal? 3 reasons. They don't know who the supplier is, yet they're being asked to sign on to leasing medical equipment. They don't know when these equipment will actually be delivered, even after payments begin. And 3, and most importantly, they don't know the total cost of the equipment they are leasing. And instead of answers, all they get is a payment schedule showing 60 to 80% of SHA funds will allegedly go directly to mysterious suppliers. So what does this actually mean to ordinary Kenyans? For example, an MRI scan, SHA covers 11,000. Vendor anapewa ngapi? 9,900, leaving the county hospital with just 1,100 Kenya shillings. In some instances, supplier anachukua even more than what SHA covers. For example, the PC ligament or AC ligament repair, SHA covers 280,000, but the supplier atapewa 340,000. That's almost more than 60,000. Anaenda nayo. And for life-saving procedures like thoracic aortic repair, the vendor or supplier pockets the entire 1.12 million Kenya shillings covered by SHA, leaving the county hospital with how much? Zero sufuri nakwambia. Imagine. Nothing. So with hospitals left broke, they are forced to raise their services. Ndio waweze kusurvive. Na nani anaumia, if you might guess, or might ask yourself? Ordinary Kenyans, already crushed by overtaxation and inflation. So I say, we fought before and won. Tumeangusha Adani, tukaangusha finance bill.
yeah. So we have Kenyans who are very educated, probably medical people, probably, accountants, people who understand the system, warning us that the county hospitals are getting a pittance. They're getting a tiny amount of the insurance. And the suppliers, the people who are supplying, the middlemen, the con men, are getting everything. And what happens to the patients? What happens to ordinary Kenyans? Okay, Susan, go ahead. Welcome, Susan, to the show.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was quite a shocking video, to find out that this audit had been done by Nancy and also Margaret, and both of them had things to say which were very concerning. The question has been asked by Kenyans. This digital system is costing 104 billion. Why? We've been asking that. Why is it costing that much? Why couldn't you upgrade the pre-existing system? And we've heard politicians saying it would never cost anywhere near 104 billion. In fact, some even said that this is a money-making exercise. Somebody's making money out of it. I don't know how prophetic or how much they knew at the time they made that comment, but it's now been revealed for sure. There are so many you know, integrity issues here, a lot of corruption, integrity issues. You know, the money is going down the cracks. I mean, how can all this money that's being collected be going to an unknown account, an account that is held by the supplier, an escrow account? How is that possible? How how is that possible? Yeah. And then the training of 7 billion, and they've not even given their targets or even explained how that money was spent on, and how many health workers were supposed to be trained. And then you get into their contracts with no scope of work, which is basically no contract. If you ask me, you can't have a contract if you don't say what, you know, because contracts are about benefit and detriment. So I'm supposed to do some work and you pay me. So if there's no scope of work, nothing to say what I'm supposed to be doing, and still you're paying me, what is that? You're giving me a gift. That is not a contract. You're giving me a gift, you know, because there's no, you're not, I'm not giving you anything back. So you're not telling me,
There are no
you know, there's no,
deliverables. There are no expectations.
literally, there's no work. Actually, that's my interpretation of that. If there's no scope of work,
Yeah.
there's literally no work. So, but you're still paying. So there's no consideration. So that's not a contract. That is a gift. Literally. And then single sourcing. This size of you know, award, this size of program, 104 billion, and doing single sourcing, you know, instead of following the procurement procedures, breaching so many laws. I mean, just listening to that video, so many laws were cited as having been breached, you know, and then the Employment Act, I mean, collecting payments of 8.3 billion for disabled people, and yet they're only 32 out of 13, 1,394. So if you do the maths, it's what percent? And then there's 8.3 billion that has they claim to have spent. And you know, and breaching all types of laws, the Employment Act on the staffing and compliance with the 1/3 rule. And then of course the other thing is, and this is the fishy part, telling the government you cannot enter into or engage into on your own a system similar to this. They have a non-competition clause, you know,
Yeah.
um, you know, inhibiting the Ministry of Health from actually coming up with their own system and running with it. So they want to sort of enslave, create dependence, so that whoever is doing it can continue to benefit from it. And how on earth did we allow such an arrangement to be made? How did it slip through the cracks? You know, the only way it could have done that is if some people were complicit. Somewhere, somebody was sleeping on the job. And 104 billion, 104.8 billion shillings is not pocket change, you know?
Actually, I've seen another quotation for 111 billion in the escrow account. 111
Yeah,
billion.
yeah, that's different. That's different. They're saying that it would raise 111 billion by what they were doing, you know, the way the
Yeah, 10
remittances are
years.
being collected
Oh,
and
I
all that.
see. Okay, that's different. Yeah,
But
okay.
the 104 billion is for the digital system that was supposed
Oh,
to be
just for the
provided for.
system. The,
Yeah, and we're supposed to be paying for that. You know, paying for that is really, really very disturbing. And then to hear Margaret Nyakango saying, actually, there's some funds that are operating outside the consolidated fund, you know, housing fund. So they're talking about this affordable
and let's
housing money.
explain, yeah, and let's explain what the consolidated fund is. Yeah. The consolidated fund is the monies that are approved by Parliament. According to the Constitution, the parliamentarians are supposed to approve spending on the taxes that are collected by Kenyans and any other monies. So all that money comes into this pooled account called the Consolidated Fund. And she answers to the parliamentarians. But when she says that that money doesn't go to the consolidated account, what we saw from previous presentations, okay, like by Jimmy Wanjigi, was that a lot of that money is going to the treasury directly. The treasury itself has a parallel account that's also receiving funds. So they're the ones who get, and she actually explained this in the time that she was being interviewed with Spice FM. She explained that some of that money, especially things to do with the roads levy fund, that goes directly to Treasury. But according to the Constitution, actually, all the funds that go to Kenya is supposed to go into the consolidated fund. Everything should go there first, and she's responsible for reporting on it. Yeah, so she's
Yeah,
not responsible when the money goes elsewhere. So some of it
yeah.
is going to
So there's
Treasury,
this.
and there's an accounting issue with Treasury.
Yeah, that's an accountability issue because she talked about the affordable housing fund. She talked about SHIFT. She talked about the railway fund, railway development fund. She talked about the petroleum fund. You can imagine the amounts of money that are being collected from all those, all those funds, and they're operating outside the consolidated fund. So there's an issue of, our national values are not being respected. If she's the budget controller, she needs to she needs to have access to some of this information. They should not be uh, operating outside, and she would not have mentioned it if it was not something of concern to her, that this money was not being collected or deposited into the consolidated fund. It means that it was an area of concern because they were pointing out the red flags. So definitely we can see SHA itself, all these flagship activities of the KK government, the Kenya Kwanza government, there's something not right about them. The SHA, the housing, affordable housing, those two in particular. I mean, those are things that were introduced by the Kenya Kwanza government, and you can see that they're not being run in the right way. Why would the supplier be the one who's receiving this money? It's like it's a direct payment or something like that, instead of it going through, being collected through the consolidated fund and then paid. You know, there's no control at all on that issue. It's a very disturbing sort of a situation. And in
Yeah.
normal circumstances, there'd be a lot of hue and cry. I don't know how people will respond to this after listening to the news, because this was, we just found this, it must have been reported during the day at some point today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a
Mhm.
bombshell, by the way. For it to be
Yeah.
confirmed by the Auditor General, none other than the
Yeah.
Auditor General, okay, and the controller of budget, two strong, powerful women. I
Yeah.
really congratulate those women. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, ladies.
Yeah.
This is your job. You're true patriots, true Kenyan patriots. Yeah. And what we can say is that, why is it that the supplier would be getting such a huge amount of money and the county hospitals are getting nothing? Yeah, why? I mean, this is unbelievable. No wonder the doctors are saying don't pay for SHA. The doctors are the most frustrated people because they cannot offer the services. They can see that their patients cannot afford the services of SHA, even if they're registered. And that's the reason why people are saying it's not working. Not because it doesn't exist, but because whatever is there is so inadequate, grossly inadequate, grossly underfunded for the patient. It's literally a scheme, a hiving scheme for middlemen. And the question is, who is the owner of SHA? If it's not Kenyans, they say the Kenya government owns the infrastructure, but they don't own what? That they don't own the technology.
Yeah. It's not owned by us.
Yes.
Technology not owned,
And the technology
controlled by
is the most
government.
important. Why is it the most important? Because data is
Yeah.
money. The data means
Yeah.
the technology is actually all the data that you're giving there. When you fill in your details, your name, do you remember there was a time that they tried to get people to register for Maisha number? And a lot of Kenyans refused. So this is actually a roundabout way to get Kenyans to actually record their information. Because even when they are registering on SHA, I have a relative who tried to register on SHA, and they told me that they actually had to declare whether or not they had things like a bicycle at home, yeah, whether you have land, whether you have a car, whether, and those are the kinds of questions that were being asked on the Maisha number ID card, if you guys recall. And that Maisha number ID card at one point also had information. They actually had some financial information from not Visa card, from MasterCard. Do you remember? Initially, it had a MasterCard logo on it. And then they said, no, we're not going to include MasterCard. It was almost like a way that they were trying to kind of, should I say, it was like a competition. It
Track.
was unfair competition with Safaricom, you know,
And tracking,
Safaricom.
yes.
Yeah, it was a way to track Kenyans, yes. So now
Mm.
the Shah is kind of like the similar exact thing. And I remember that this was also tied to specific bigwigs, global bigwigs. When I say bigwigs, I'm talking about big names in the global arena. There were big names that were being dropped. And I'm going to say the names like BLACK, ROCK. That's one. The other one is BILLGATES. And if you remember, very recently, the latter, the Bill Gates actually demanded that he wanted protection. He wanted amnesty or protection of some sort. Susan knows the word, the legal word for it. Yeah. And the question is, why? And the question is, who owns Shah? If the funding for the global, for the HIV/AIDS, for the global fund, for all that, if the funding is coming from the Bill Gates organization, Bill and Melinda Gates organization, from WHO, who do you think owns this Shah, guys? So therefore, who owns your data? Who owns your data? So when you register
And
for Shah, who is responsible for ensuring the protection of your data? Your data is power. Do you know your data is so important because it controls your finances? It controls whether you'll be able to sell or buy. I saw that in the Bible they had talked about the fact that there'll be only those people who have the mark of the beast or something like that, they said. In the Bible. This is the Bible, not me. Okay? The religious book talks about the mark of something and saying about who would be able to sell or buy are only those who have a specific mark. Now listen, I'm not saying that the Shah is that mark, but I'm saying be on the lookout for what's going on. The data that you're being requested, if it's not in the hands of your government, then whose hands is it in? Whose? And do you trust those people with your data?
And medical information is so private, it can really be weaponized very easily. It can affect so many things in your life if that information gets out. And it's your private information. So of course, the Constitution itself protects you from, you're entitled to your privacy. It's a right to privacy. It's a right. But sometimes the damage is already done when they've got hold of the information, which is really, really unfortunate and very worrying. And for such a good idea in principle, in terms of universal health care, people being able to access healthcare. In fact, what somebody told me, I've never been on the system, not NHIF or the other, but now I find myself, I'm no different from those who are on the system, because our struggle is the same. We go to you go to the hospital and you both have to pay if you want to be treated. You have to pay, so that they're in the same position, those who are paying and those who are not, which is really sad, because the employers are deducting the money, and it's supposed to be going to Shah. And again, we have the stories of in fact, mostly the government, state organs, state owned institutions and all that. Those are the ones who are not remitting money, and they are the largest of the groups. There are many, and they have huge numbers of personnel, and so it's really just a really vicious cycle. But for somebody just to make that idle observation that there's no difference between those who are paying Shah and those who are not, in terms of the benefits you get in a hospital. You'll be told to pay cash right now. You saw the 600 hospitals were affected by the, the change in policy in the rural and urban private hospital. They said, well, you want to be treated, pay. And sometimes people really just don't have the money. The way things are, you just don't have the money, and that's why insurance is so important. So it's a really sad thing, and in fact, this just points to the fact that there are people who really don't care about the citizens of this nation. They don't care about the constitution. They don't care about you, and so they're not they're not averse to playing tic tac toe with your head. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah. Let me play something here. And then we can listen to, these are Kenyans who are on TikTok. And I like TikTok because people speak their minds. Yeah. And I like that. I like that. So here's somebody here that I follow.
This is the bombshell from the Auditor General. SHA is against the law. SHA broke the law, and they cannot explain how they used 1.4 billion. SHA system is not owned by the government, is owned by individuals. And SHA cannot justify why they deduct the salary at the percentage they're deducting. In short, SHA is an illegality. It is a fraud. It against the people of Kenya. It must be discontinued. This is the
I suspect we're going to see a lot of that in the coming days. People saying, stop it, maybe compelling their employers really until we can understand what's happening. I'd rather have that money, and when I need to go to hospital, I'll take myself. I'm no different anyway from the person who's paying, from the person who's not paying, who's not on SHA. So,
Unfortunately, it's the same with the housing fund.
yeah.
You're no bit different from the person who's not paying. They're all the same. They all seem to be just scams. All these things. And you know what is really sad is that when you listen to people tell you that they are only earning something like about 40%, let's say 50% of their salaries because of taxation. Whether you're in private sector or in government, you're affected. Whether you have a high salary or a low one, you're affected. Yeah. So people's salaries are, people who have a pay slip currently, their taxes are so high. When I went to town the other day, I saw so many businesses are closed, so many doors closed, so many to let signs. It never used to be like that. Do you remember, guys, that if you wanted a shop or a business in the Central Business District in Nairobi City Center, you had to pay goodwill of millions just to have, access. Not even to own the shop. You had to pay millions upfront. Now they're begging people. They're taking shops, slicing them in pieces, and people still do not want those shops. People are moving their businesses home. They're working from home. They can't afford rent. Most people cannot afford it because you have to choose between, are you going to buy food? Are you going to pay school fees? Or are you going to pay rent for your house and your accommodate and your business? And apart from rent, then you have to employ employees. So that means that also the unemployment rate is going up, because if the private sector employs the majority of Kenyans, more than 75%, it means that we're going to have a serious unemployment rate in this country. What does unemployment come with? It comes with high rates of crime, high rates of insecurity, low rates of, high rates of drug abuse, alcohol abuse, high rates of domestic violence. So we are actually on a really steep decline in the country at this rate. And this is why I say, are you worried about Kenya? Where are we heading to as a country? What do you think, guys? Tell us your views. Those of you who are here in Kenya, don't be shy. Talk. This is public participation. Let's talk. Yeah.
Basically, what happens when you're so constrained, and the choices are fewer, and you have to really, work out what your priorities are, and so you start missing out on some things which are, they're still they're crucial, but then when you list your priorities, they're not as important as others, which the quality of life of people is affected by, uh, you know, by that. And the one of the things that Martha Karua was talking about when she was being interviewed, the launch of her party, the People's Liberation Party, and she was talking about the the way people's salaries, pay slips have been really um, sort of invaded by the taxman in terms of the statutory requirements, and people are paying for things they don't even want. I mean, we know some people are paying for that affordable housing, and they already have their own homes. They already have their own homes, so they don't really need that house. And it's not. It's very difficult when you're being compelled to pay for something that you don't have any interest for. And at the end of the day, because in fact, there's some statistics in the newspaper, in the Nation newspaper, on the disappointment of the affordable housing. There were some articles on it. I need to get it. I think it's somewhere. I'll get it to get those figures out. Yeah, so it's really something that we need to try to be more resilient as Kenyan people. Try to figure out how to survive. We are hardworking people by nature, and we are able to be creative and find ways to survive. The alternatives of going down the rabbit hole of you know stealing and those negative things is not, it's not, they should not really be there, because we are ambassadors, and we have always have other people looking up to us. It doesn't matter where you are, as long as you're older than somebody, people look up to you. So we have to try and set good examples even in this time, and speak the truth. And perhaps like Martha Karua is doing exactly that. She's decided to rebrand her party from NARC Kenya to People's Liberation Party. She's given it a new lease of life. She's there with not just her, but she has her delegates who decided they needed to rebrand the party after 20 years. And yeah, and she's looking at, she was being asked by Jeff Koinange, do you ever get tired? And she says, no, I don't get tired. I know there's we need to keep improving the political landscape. We have to ensure that Kenyan people have the better, live in a better place. Their quality of life is better. And she talked about her ideology, which are social. That the PLP, People's Liberation Party, social democrats, social justice, civil liberties of the individual, observance of the rule of law. The law applies equally to all, and prudent spending, and focusing on citizens' needs. Yeah, so the registrar of political parties was saying since 2022, the political parties now have to file alongside their application to be registered as a party. They have to file a document showing their ideology. But pre that time, that's not what was happening. That it's really difficult, apparently, to file. Apparently, there are a lot of applications, 30 to 40, she says, but they've only, passed two. It's very difficult to register a political party, and it's even more difficult to deregister it. And she was saying that whenever they get to that stage of deregistering, they're taken to court. Yeah, so there's when a party sort of detracts from its main purpose, it takes off in a different tangent which it had not stated. That's why it wanted to be registered. They're given a warning letter. Then after, if they don't respond after 90 days, they're suspended. If they still don't respond, then they're deregistered, and it's at the point of deregistration that they're taken to court. Yeah, so those are some of the things. Let's do positive things like Martha, and we hope, you know, that she wants to vie for the presidency. But she said something in 2027. She said something very interesting. She said that she's aware that there are very many parties and that she will work with the other opposition parties, and they intend to field one presidential candidate together. And we know as a strategy that has worked in Kenya before. They're looking at the plight of Kenyans today with the high, you know, the healthcare system not working, the education system is not working. We're seeing the crisis with the Form 1 issue. Upwards, the CDC, is it grade 9? They just went there. Those are Form 1s, literally. And onwards. And I heard a teacher talking about it and saying how this system is appalling. And he had many reasons. I didn't listen to the whole video. So we have the healthcare system. We have it also at university level where the help has been sort of, they're trying to replace it with this new funding model, which was deemed unconstitutional by the courts, but which now there's a stalemate at the universities. So some students are not going to school at all. So we have that. We have insecurity, which is so serious, and we keep talking about it. You know, we're looking forward to the findings of the task force on femicide that was set up under the chairmanship of Nancy Baraza, and see what they come up with. People are supposed to be making representations. So anybody listening, if you have something to say, you need to write it down and send it into the committee, so that they can see what you have to say on the subject. Yeah, so I'll stop there. I don't know what you want to add.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. Yeah, you brought up the Martha Karua question, and all I can say about her is that I wish her the best with her party, and I hope that they all come together and they choose one candidate. Many pluses for Martha are: number one, she brings like something different to, something different to Kenya. She has integrity. She's been known to have that integrity. She's not been associated with any corruption scandals. She has strength, endurance. She's super enduring, steadfast. She has character. But what's on the negative for Martha is the fact that she is a woman. And Kenya, are we ready for a woman president? It will take a mind shift for many Kenyans, not to look at her gender, but to see her as an individual, not just a woman. Yeah, or not just by her gender. Just the same way that we look at male candidates by their name and by their character. One should be known by their character, yeah, not and not by what's in between your legs. Really, it's not that. It's about your character, what you bring to the table, and also I guess some of the things that also don't work for her is the fact that she's a woman, she's a bit older, and women also, we face ageism in the workplace at all levels. And she also doesn't really she's not a very charming person, likable person, like most people. But really, we need to move beyond these things, guys. Yeah, we need to move beyond what's on the outside of people and see their work, judge people by their character, by who they are, who have they presented themselves to be. Past behavior is a good indication of future behavior. We need a strong person to lead the country. And if it will be Martha that they all front, I hope that Kenyans will be wise enough to choose the right person to lead the country. Now, I want to move on to the issue of wastage of funds in Kenya. Like we saw, the president today went and donated money to yesterday went and donated money to 20 million shillings, which is how many times his monthly salary. He has a monthly salary of 1.5 million shillings. But William Ruto decided to donate 20 million shillings to this church called Jesus Winner Ministries, because the Catholic Church, chided him against it. The Catholic Church was upset and told him to keep his money. So he went and decided to donate the money to 20 million shillings to Jesus Winner Ministry, and pledged 100 million, which is times how many times his salary? Almost 10. How many times his salary? You people who go to church, Can you please explain to me what the heck this is about? Because I used to go to
100
church and I stopped. I no longer go to church because I just consider it to be a place that if Jesus came back, he would come with a very big stick and probably more than that. Probably he would even be coming in with drones to get rid of all these people who have created a marketplace in the church. And yet, we think people are struggling. Children don't have money to go to school. The shift is like whatever. And the president is there. Aye, Susan, please, you have something to say, please, kindly.
I saw a video of this guy was so annoyed. First of all, fundraisers have been proscribed. They're not supposed to do them. Yeah, it's unlawful. That's the first thing. You're not supposed to do them. Then secondly, is that amount of money. I mean, the question, of course, people are asking about is where, SHA is not working. The education system is not working. So many things are not working. And then you go and give 20 million
The
shillings
lights are not working. The
like
lights.
it's 200 bob, 200 bob, as a donation. And there's an integrity issue because really they should have refused to accept it. The reason why the Catholics refuse to accept the money is because they do not want to be manipulated. And you don't remember that when somebody gives you money, he who pays the piper calls the tune. Basically, they do not want to be manipulated. So it was an integrity issue. So even this church, after watching what has happened in other churches, they should also have refused to accept that money. Because again, we don't know the source of that money. What's the source of where was that money obtained from? Secondly, it's unlawful for that to happen. Thirdly, it's a way of control. You're given money and somebody will come back to you later on. So this, like they're looking for a favor from you later on. So there's lots of concern about that sort of thing, and that's actually why the fundraisers were stopped in the churches, and people not supposed to be, not just churches, just anywhere where there's this imbalance of power sort of thing, so that that control cannot be used against you and you're compelled to act in a certain way. So it's something that people are talking, they're really annoyed about. We just watch the videos and stuff, they're really talking about that. It has caused a lot of displeasure. And that, the very fact that that people are going to respond or react in such a way, and you just say whatever and you continue to do it, is something of some concern. Like you said, the county governments, their money is usually delayed. Their money is usually delayed. And then the thing is, you're doing it with, everybody knows. I mean, people, it was seen on the TV, the giving of that money. So it's this ostentatious display of having in the face of people who have not, and you are responsible for providing an environment that will enable them to have even the basic things, and yet to you, it means nothing. As a sort of disdain, looking down on the citizenry, and these are the sort of things that are making people annoyed. Yeah. So with Martha's party, I just wanted to mention something else about it. She was asked about the broad-based government and what she thought about it, and she said that the ODM position is completely unconstitutional. That's what she said. Because they are, yeah.
Can you
Because
explain
they
the
are going,
broad-based government to those people who don't quite understand it? And Leah.
it's a mechanism or a structure that the current Kenyan government has come up with to draw people from the would-be opposition's side, but because we are a presidential system, let me say from the minority, which is like the opposition, into government. So currently we have a situation where one party in the opposition coalition, ODM, is actually in government. And that has caused a lot of strife because, when you're on the opposition or when you're in the minority, you have a specific job to do in the structure of things, to act as a check and balance in parliament, to keep monitoring so that and oversight one another so there are no excesses. But now you draw in these people into government, which means they're not going to critique. So it becomes an echo chamber, and they'll do things which are beneficial to them without forgetting the actual structure that was recommended or that we came up with in our constitution. And our constitution is that there's an executive, then there's parliament, and then there's the judiciary. And then in the executive is supposed to be sort of made up of the party that won the election, literally. And they're rubbishing the very fact of my one man, one vote, in terms of you've gone to vote, and it's a competition. So one party will win and one will not. Otherwise, why do we need to go to the ballot? You can actually just come up with a formula and say, oh, these 5 years, it's this group. These 5 years is this. So we don't exercise our right to vote. We don't exercise our civil and political right. So they're just rubbishing that. And so
it's the
people
people
went to the
you vote for who eventually you vote for people to represent you, and they go to represent other people once they get nominated or once they get elected. Is that it?
they go
They
and
jump into
negotiate system, and they're claiming it's so that there's inclusiveness in government, so that this idea that the winner takes all is dealt with. But I don't think that's what a democracy is about.
But that's the
We
whole
know it's
idea. The winner does take it all. It
a
should be like that.
democracy. It's not about that. And that constitution of ours really was worked on for 10 years. They sat down, and there are earlier, of course, amendments to the 63 constitution before it was overhauled the way it was. People have really thought about what they wanted and what they didn't want. And the people of Kenya said they wanted a presidential system. They wanted to vote for the chief executive of this country directly. So with all these meanderings that they're doing, these things that they're doing, they're messing with the checks and balances that are contained in the constitution. So to that extent, that's why she's saying they're unconstitutional. And yes, that's what she was saying, and this is something that's really, really, really unfortunate. And she was arguing. What else did she say? Oh yeah, she was also asked about the abductions. She's been involved in the Besigye case, and she pointed out Besigye is the opposition politician from Uganda, where he was actually abducted from Kenya and taken back to Uganda. And not just him, they're not talking about the other people he was with, but apparently there were some other Ugandans who were
Oh,
also
many,
in
yeah.
Kenya. They had come legitimately, they were doing something else. And then they were abducted and taken back to Uganda. And she's saying that in the course of if you listen to the video, she talks about in the course of the case, they admitted that there's an agreement, an MOU that the Ugandans have with the Kenyan government. And so that's why these Ugandan guys came right into Kenya. And, there must have been a mix of them and Kenyan personnel. And they picked these guys and took them to Uganda. And we had the Turkish fellows. Remember? Those guys were actually on asylum. They were refugees here, political refugees. And we allowed them to be kidnapped. Some Ethiopians, of course, and we know our young people since the Gen Z riots and whatever. This is something that will be hard for them to live down. People will not forget. I think the people will not forget the 23, 24 debacle of the arresting and the manhandling of the young people. That's something that I think people will not forget. So she raised that. She said that is something that's so serious. And by the way, remember this our human rights record, these abductions of people. It was suggested it was one of the reasons why we lost the bid, why Raila lost the bid, because Kenya itself did not have a good record in terms of looking after the citizens, and that is seen as a human rights breach. Yeah, so Some of the other things, of course, were our foreign affairs, our foreign policy. And by the way, we've written a new foreign policy, supposed to be this year, 2025. And people, people are asking what's the difference between the previous policy and this policy, and stuff like that. And they've reviewed it, but whatever strategy they are employing, it has really caused a lot of irritation from our neighbors. I mean, we are still asking ourselves why the RSF, Rapid Support Forces of Sudan, were allowed to declare their parallel government in Kenya. You know, why did we allow that to happen? So those were like the sort of like foreign policy mistakes that were made by the president. That, of course, and also things like Haiti. People have gone there and they live there. It's terrible. The conditions are really, really bad. Salaries are delayed. Very high risk, very dangerous environment. And of course, we've seen what's happened with the change of policy in the US and how it's going to impact that. I think the other day they brought home a body of a young man who died in one of those clashes in Haiti, and they buried him. So the policy, really, even the DRC issue, going to speak to Macron first before consulting with Africans, showing that perhaps we are more attached, we're lackeys of the West as Kenyans, not giving a picture that portrays us in a good light. That really annoyed the the Africans. A lot of things and positions that were taken then affected Raila's win. And then, of course, we know that he's come back. The question is, what does he want? He's come back.
Can I answer that? What does Raila want? Raila wants, Ruto has offered Raila 12 permanent secretary positions, but as the ODM leader, he's asking for 16. Yeah, he wants a lot of positions in the already very bloated government. There is an article in Tuko News, Kenyan newspapers review, Kindiki to move out of Harambee House Annex as Ruto-Raila deal takes shape. I thought Kindiki was the deputy president. I mean, why is he going to have to move offices to make space for Raila? What's really going on here, According to the Taifa Leo newspaper, which is in Swahili, it reported that the former deputy president Rigathi Gachagwa's criticism of President William Ruto, where he claimed that the opposition lacked a clear development agenda, they noted that it was not that we don't have a plan, but the most urgent plan we've been given by Kenyans is to defeat you in the next polls. It's not possible to implement our plans before we remove you. Okay, so it's just like a review of various newspapers. So there's a Standard, there's a Taifa Leo, which is in Swahili, and the Standard newspaper was reporting that that there was a new deal being discussed between ODM, this is the opposition leader, Raila Odinga, and William Ruto. We've been hearing rumors about these discussions, but why don't they just come out in the open with their electorate and tell us what they're actually discussing? Apparently, all we can do is to see that signs, look at the symptoms and signs of the discussion. Raila's security has already been beefed up because President Ruto is expected to create the office of the non-executive prime minister for him at Harambee House Annex. Well, how true is that? Under the new arrangements, the former prime minister is expected to get more cabinet and principal secretary seats, parliamentary committee positions, ambassadorial postings, and other top appointments. So Ruto has offered Raila the 12 PS positions, but Raila is asking for 16. And you see, you guys, in an already bloated government, do we really have the money to pay for additional staff? We're going to be bloating this government out. And I think it is completely irresponsible of the government to try to create more positions in government. Are you telling us that we are not going to be promoting manufacturing where people can actually, try and make money for the country, and the only place to make money in this country is in government. Yeah. And meanwhile, the government is inviting the IMF to conduct, and I mentioned it a bit earlier, a governance diagnostic assessment, which is basically an evaluation for Kenya to identify corruption risks that could impact the economy. And Kenyans, they're there, making jokes. They're saying, what are they talking about? Yeah, exactly. Let the IMF send the loans to the individual accounts. We want nothing to do with that, because people are saying this is just a waste of time. The IMF already knows that Kenya is over indebted country, and it knows that there's corruption, and they know who is doing the corruption. So they feel that this is just disingenuous of the IMF, and the IMF should just go ahead and just send the money directly to those officials' accounts. Yeah.
I can hear
So they're
that
also
being
considering
said in the mother tongue. In the mother tongue of Kiswahili. How was that said?
mother tongue of Kiswahili.
Yeah, how would that be
No,
said,
somebody's, yeah. The responses, some people are saying the IMF is in itself a major corruption risk, loaning out money that they are fully aware will be stolen. Yes, unless they're in bed with the people who are going to take the money, And then somebody said, just check the containers at State House. They have already impacted the economy. Not good. And people are really upset. They're irked. Yeah. And so basically what they're saying is that, that the IMF is just a big joke. And, they were talking about, by the way, there were rumors that the BRICS nations were actually going to dump the IMF. But apparently what they're doing is that they're not dumping the IMF. They have actually created a separate bank that they can borrow money from. So it's a way to kind of dump them, softly, a soft landing for the IMF and the World Bank. And so if Kenya wants to join the BRICS nations, and at the same time, we're asking IMF to come and evaluate itself, literally, to self-assess to what extent the country is corrupt. We're opening up our country for you to. I mean, this is so. I don't even know what to say, by the way, They're playing around with our minds. They think that Kenyans are stupid, but we're not stupid. Meanwhile, Kenyans are just looking for the basics. They just want electricity so that they can do their work. Yeah. Kenyans are tired of power outages, token delays. Kenyans are sick and tired of dangerous roads to drive on. We are sick and tired of all these blackouts that we're experiencing. Yeah. To the point where, even by the way, we saw that the CID office was also complaining. They were like, hey, you know what? Kenya Power, don't just go cutting off our electricity just like that. And you saw with Sakaja, he denied that rubbish was that he had ordered the rubbish to be poured right in front of KPLC offices, Kenya Power lighting offices, in front of the doorsteps. Yeah. So there's this back and forth, which is so childish and so irritating, guys, don't you think? And meanwhile, Kenya is going to be issuing a 135 billion roads bond for pending bills. Why would we be issuing a bond for bills, for pending bills? These bonds are supposed to be for development, not for paying of overhead. And by the way, those pending bills should have been paid with the money that was there before. And guess why? The kind of reasons that they're providing here, it's because of, I don't know, I'm still yet to read it in full in the Business Daily. Just go and read that. Kenya to issue 135 billion roads bond for pending bills. And what I know is that any money that comes in, we were told by Margaret Okongo that any money that comes into the government is support from these kinds of bonds and bills should actually be going to development. They should be going to development. Any money that we borrow outside there should be coming in for development. And if it's not, it should not be going to, funding an already bloated government. But we know that a lot of this money goes there. And that's what Margaret Okongo told us once, that a lot of the money is going there. And we also need to be aware that City Hall was on the EACC, okay? the Anti-Corruption Commission radar over 300 million shilling lighting deal all the way back last year, August 14th, 2024. Nairobi City Council was on the spot over 300 million shilling irregular procurement of goods for the supply and delivery of electrical materials of street lighting, for street lighting. The revelations were captured in a second quarterly report covering the period between April 2024 to June 2024 by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. The report stated that this was done through issuance of local purchase orders, LPOs, to 8 companies amounting to 300 million in the financial year 2022-2023. But upon its investigation by the Anti-Corruption Commission, they noted that there was a clear violation of the 14 waiting day period, which must lapse before the notifications of awards and contracts were signed. So just like what is going on right now, there's irregularity in terms of tendering processes, in terms of competition. Yeah. And so right now we have a problem. We are lacking security lights in parts of the country. And it's to blame for a lot of the insecurity and early closures of businesses. So there's a lot of impact on the country when you don't have street lighting. People don't feel secure, so they close their businesses because it increases insecurity. Yeah. So this is like today being a Monday, we usually do like a news roundup and we talk about what's going on in Kenya. And so I think we are going to come to the end of our show for today because there's a lot to discuss. But just keep your eye out and let's discuss these issues by next week. Next Monday, you can talk about it. Even on Wednesday, we have another political show. We can also talk about those things. But keep your eyes out for those of you who are probably aspiring to become politicians in Kenya. Always be aware of what's going on. Don't just, don't be misled. Let's listen to the Auditor General and the Controller of Budget, people like those. Let's read the reports, those evaluations, the anti-corruption, Anti-Corruption Commission reports. Go back and find out what people
Ethics.
what has actually happened. Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, yes, that is right.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, anyway, yep,
And
there's just, yeah, I am worried about Kenya, and in conclusion, I am worried. I don't know where we're heading as a country. I asked, where are we heading as a country? I don't know. Susan, where are we heading?
we are very resilient as a people, and yeah, we'll turn things around. I just wanted to tie in
I
something
like
with
that.
the Raila. When we talked about Raila and he's now back, and you said, oh, he wants this and wants that. Yeah, he wants to be the prime minister, and I just want to draw the link of where that's coming from. What he said, I watched a video. I think I'm not sure exactly where he was, but he was talking about it. He said that he wants implementation of NADCO. And NADCO is the National Dialogue Committee report. And it had 5 main areas. And one is electoral justice and related matters. This required the restructuring of the IEBC and audit of the 2022 presidential elections through a panel of experts. We know that IEBC is being restructured. We're expecting them to appoint to have new commissioners by, I think they said April or May. And then the second is deal with outstanding constitutional matters, e.g., a cost of living and implementation of the 2/3 gender rule and governance issues. The third is fidelity to political parties and coalitions. They're supposed to address that issue. Fourth is funding the constitution, because we had and I think we've talked about this before. Bimo has brought it out about the CDF and whether or not it's constitutional. So they're talking about funding the constitution, e.g., one of the areas is the National Government Constituency Fund. Another one is the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. Another one is the Senate Oversight Fund. Those are just some of the examples. And then the fifth one is to establish and entrenchment of state offices, like the office of the leader of the official opposition and office of the prime minister. Now, the job of the prime minister that is envisaged under the NADCO is to coordinate functions of the executive arm of government, to coordinate functions of the executive arm of government. And we know right now we have the prime secretary. Is it called the prime secretary? That's Musalia Mudavadi. Obviously, this is something that's just making the Luya, our Luya people happy, because they feel that this is proposal, if accepted or acceded to, is will affect his position. So the Luyas are talking loudly about it. They're not happy about that proposition, especially for Kenya. There's also Amani, which is Mudavadi's function. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring this up, the fifth one, you've heard, this is where they want to establish the office of the Prime Minister. Interestingly, the fifth point was rejected by the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee in Parliament. The reason why it was rejected is that it will alter the supremacy of the Constitution, and secondly, it will affect the functions of Parliament. You see, the office of the Prime Minister, if this structure that they're talking about is moving away from what you call the presidential system. And to have the office of the Prime Minister, that works in a parliamentary system, but not in a presidential system. So even if you're talking about having a hybrid, you see, you don't just put in an office and don't think about how it's going to impact the balance of power between the various arms. And you can see even from the function they want to give him, it seems like a replication or duplication of somebody else's job. Which is likely to cause a lot of problems. And of course we expect the opposition or the minority, because in a presidential system they have what they call the minority and majority parties. So they expect the minority to really be doing their work to keep the majority on their toes, to keep the executive on their toes. But when you have this you're creating offices just to find a job or to appease a situation, then that's a problem. I think you're even not, I think, in my view, not respecting what the Kenyans voted for or what they passed when they actually considered what type of system they wanted before the 2010 constitution. They came up with that 2010 constitution. So this is now what is happening literally is that the elite are discussing over the heads of wananchi how things are going to go without consulting wananchi. And a lot of people are not happy. Even some elite people can see there's a danger here. Danson Mungatana said it's not good. You heard what Martha Karua said. This is affecting the order, the political order, the order of things. So how do you check some of these things? How do you manage these things? And again, as Queen Mo said, the budget, it goes up because we have created offices, different offices in new offices. And of course, he's not going to be in that office alone. He'll have his whole group of people with him. So it's something that is going to cost us. And then of course the Luyas not being very happy about this sort of situation. And they are making a lot of noise about
Susan, it can't just be the Luyas alone. What about the Merus and their deputy president?
Yes, you're right. The deputy president. Yeah, exactly.
All I can say is that we should stop calling each other Luos and Luyas and all that crap, guys. Yeah? If we're citizens of Kenya, we're just citizens of Kenya. Let's see ourselves as Kenyans. Let's refuse. In fact, I don't know when we're going to get to this point, guys. We have to agree as a nation to see ourselves as, yes, we do come from different tribes, but that's got nothing to do with politicians. This is our country. I want to feel comfortable in any part of the country. You want to feel comfortable living and working in any part of the country. You don't want to feel this bajimboism thing that, people are segregated to different parts of the country, that this group lives here, that group lives there, that group lives there. No, 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 no. This is our country. Just like you say, if you go to countries like the UK, the US, you'll see, like in the US, the UK, people live everywhere. Go to the UK, you'll see the Welsh living in England, and the British living in Scotland, and the Scottish living in Ireland. Nobody will ever talk about, oh, we need a Scottish person, representative here, and we want an Irish person, representative. In terms of, we need to get all the Irish together here. We need to get the Apana. It doesn't work like that, guys. It doesn't. I don't know. There's something wrong with us here. Yeah, because like that's the reason why we actually aspire to go to some of these countries, because we really hate these being divided, colonized, divide and rule by tribe. We need to get out of that tribal cocoon and see ourselves as Kenyans. Many families are mixed. They can't even tell you what they are. Mom is a Luya, dad is a Luo. The grandma was a Kikuyu, married to a Maasai. Come on, guys. We are Kenyan. We are Kenyan. We have to take on that tag as Kenyan. And beyond that, African. We're African first, and then we're Kenyan. And we need to stop. Don't allow the politicians to capitalize and to weaponize what is beautiful and what was given to us. These many tongues that were given to us by the Creator. We should not allow these people to weaponize them, because actually what they're doing is perpetuating the effects of colonialism, which is what they did. They will always be looking for the things that divide so that they can rule. And if we continue to see ourselves as only this tribe, I'm not saying that we should not be proud of our tribes. No, 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 no. We should be super proud of our tribes, because actually it is a beautiful thing. It's nice to have a language, a culture, a way of speaking, a group, a belonging. Yes, it gives you a sense of belonging, but it should not be weaponized. That's what I'm talking about. Don't allow that to be used against us. And the only way we can say, the same way we look at tribe is the same way we should look at age, gender, even social class. Because you see, these people won the specific, these guys, the Kenya Kwanza came in on the hustler narrative. And that hustler narrative was about dividing and ruling and talking about what? There was the hustler and the higher class, the ruling class. So they
They're
weaponized
called dynasty.
the dynasty and the
And the
hustlers.
hustler.
Look, where is that taking you? Where has that taken you? Where has that taken us? Where has that taken me? Nowhere. Doesn't help us. Yeah, it doesn't. So let's stop looking at each other as Luos, Luyas, Merus. What? We are Kenyans. We just want a good Kenyan to lead Kenya. Period. We don't care where they come from. We don't care which side of the country they come from. What we care about is their character. Character is everything. Is more important than one's tribe or age or gender. Character. Very important. Let's not forget that. Yeah. Integrity, character. So when you look at all these people, look for the person who has character and integrity. That's the person that we want to lead our country. Nothing less, nothing more. That's it. Yeah. Young, old, we just want character. Look at Ibrahim Traore. Do you guys know what tribe he is? Do you know and do you care what tribe Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso is? Do you care? Do you care what tribe he is? No. We see him as an African. In fact, all of us are like, bring Ibrahim Traore. We would love to make him Kenyan president any day. We don't care what tribe he's in. He is. You see what I'm talking about? Weaponizing tribes. Yeah. So we should not. We as African Queen Mo, here we accept you as you are. We don't see you as your tribe. We accept that you come from a specific group of people, but you are Kenyan first if you're Kenyan, or you're Tanzanian or Ugandan or whatever. And even beyond that, you're African from the continent. So what we want is good leaders. That's what we want. We want security. We want lighting. We don't want a bloated government. We want proper use of funding. We want transparency. We want fairness. And we want safety. and fair and open processes of tendering. We want character in our government, and we want to be proud of our country that way. Okay, we don't want to just be known as the people who run or the people who have animals, the five big five. That's not good enough. We need to have character. And that's really super important. So, anyway, thanks, guys. On that note, I want to say good night. It's been a long night, and we appreciate you spending time with us. We've seen that a lot of people were watching the show today. We really appreciate you. Next time, don't be shy. Come into the StreamYard. Let's chat more. Come into the studio. Thank you for supporting us. Remember to thumbs up our videos. And Susan, thank you so much for your time. And for Fia always there. Thank you so much, Fia. Do appreciate you being there. And thank you. We'll see you on Wednesday. Wednesday, we'll be talking geopolitics and politics still. So if you have any questions or you want to continue this discussion, you're welcome. Okay. Bye-bye, guys. To-dos. Kwaherini. Bye-bye.